All right, the objection's overruled, and Doctor, I think they wanted you to step down, so you may do that.
Dr. Simons, I just want you to briefly show the jury on your own self where that bullet would have entered.
Okay, and so I'll step down. So if you are looking at me, it is the equivalent of looking at the photograph that you're looking at. What you're seeing on your left side is my right side, and what you're seeing on your right side is my left side. And so in that photo, which I'll show to you in a little more detail on the screen, you're looking at the thighs and the area of the genitals and the perineum. So on the left side of your photograph, you're looking at the inner aspect of the right side of Jordan Davis's side. Then at the top of that photograph, you're looking at the area that the genitals are. At the immediately down below that would be the perineal area. And then if you continue around to the right side of the photograph, you're looking at the inner or medial aspect of the left side.
All right. Thank you, Doctor. If you'll resume the stand. Dr. Simons, was that fragment the only evidence of a bullet you found in connection with this wound?
There was an x-ray taken that showed a bullet that was inside the thigh.
Then can you go ahead and describe the bullet path to the jury of gunshot wound number 2?
Yes, and that was from right to left, slightly front to back, and no definite upward or downward deviation.
And you stated that this bullet lodged in the left thigh, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Was there any soot or stippling found on the entrance wound that you've previously described?
No.
Okay. I'm going to show you a series of photographs starting with States 150. Can you explain this photograph to the jury?
Yes. There had been a photo up prior to that.
Would you like to go back to that?
I think so. So what I'd like to do is just orient you now to the wounds that are all in this area. And so if you remember the demonstration that I just did, I remarked on the inner or medial aspect of the right thigh. And so we have a wound back here that we'll discuss, a wound here that we will discuss. And then we have that top area, which is where the genitals and the scrotum are, and then this area is the perineum. And then we have the inner or medial aspect of the left thigh and another wound right here.
All right. So can you, since you labeled the wounds, can you put a number 2 on the entry to number 2?
Yes.
Thank you. And then is the number 3 wound depicted in here as well?
Yes.
And
This is the entrance, and this is the exit.
Okay. And to go ahead and clarify things, did you ever recover a projectile from the number 3 wound?
No.
Going then back to States 150, you have to tap the screen, thank you, States 150, does that show the measure that you used to determine this wound?
Yes.
Okay. States 151.
So this is an x-ray, again taken with Jordan Davis in the anatomic position. So what you're looking at would be the left side of his body here, as I've marked, and the right side here. These are the pelvic bones or the hip bones, and this is the lower portion of the spinal column. And then we have what we call the femur or the thigh bone, and so this is the left femur or thigh bone, and this is the right femur or thigh bone. And the area that we were talking about that was the genitals and perineum is somewhere around here. So the entrance wound for path number 2 would be somewhere around here and heads up through the soft tissue into this area where the bullet lodges. So one benefit of this x-ray also demonstrates that there was no fracture of any of the bones and shows that the bullet only went through the soft tissue, meaning the muscle, the nerves, the blood vessels.
Doctor, based on that wound path and the entrance and where the projectile was found, is it fair to say that that gunshot wound entered between Jordan Davis's legs somehow?
Yes.
Okay. Can you use that pink dowel and stand just to the outside the jury box?
Yes.
And just show that path briefly, just across your body.
Okay. So the path is starting somewhere around here on the inner portion of my thigh and ending somewhere around here, but deep inside below the skin. So I just want to make sure that it's clear that the bullet did not come out. And so this is approximately the path
Okay,
that we're seeing.
thank you. And let me show you then States 152, the photograph. Doctor, is that the projectile you recovered from the left thigh of Jordan Davis?
Yes, it is.
And is that the projectile associated with gunshot wound number 2?
Yes, it is.
States 153. Explain that photograph to the jury.
So these are, again, 4 views similar to what we looked at on the chest. The value of these views is it shows the degree of deformation of the bullet. And so in this particular case, we can look at the base of the bullet and see that that's it's still in very well-preserved condition, and the sides of the bullet remain cylindrical, but the upper portion, the top portion, is very deformed. It's not a nice smooth round cone that we would expect with a bullet. And so what that helps us figure, especially in the case of this second path that I described, is that a bullet did go through the door of the car before entering Jordan Davis's body, because just passing through soft tissue without a fracture of bone would not have caused that much damage to the bullet.
Dr. Simon states 154 in evidence. Is
And-
that the packaging, so that since it's folded up, is that the packaging that the medical examiner's office uses to place these projectiles in and then turn over to the law enforcement agency?
Yes, it is.
Right. I'm going to show you what's entered into evidence as states 192 and ask you, Dr. Simons, is this the projectile you recovered from Jordan Davis's left thigh?
Yes, it is.
May I, Your Honor?
Yes, ma'am.
Dr. Simons, was gunshot wound number 2 by itself fatal to Jordan Davis?
No, it was not.
Would it have debilitated Jordan Davis?
Yes.
In what way?
So this bullet went through nerve and muscle, and that's in the thigh area. So I do believe that it would have hindered his ability to move around, and also adding to this is the knowledge that now he's been struck by not just one bullet, but another bullet, and subsequently another bullet, so, feeling more fear.
Let me take you then to the third of the 3 gunshot wounds to Jordan Davis's body. Can you describe that gunshot wound?
Yes, so the third gunshot wound is what I described as a perforating gunshot wound of the right thigh. And the difference between the term perforating here and the previous gunshot descriptions, which were penetrating, means that I did not find a bullet within Jordan Davis's body. It went in and then exited out. And so this was a wound where the entrance was 87 centimeters above the right heel on the inner aspect of the right thigh.
And doctor, these exhibits all say unknown size projectile. Why is it that you call them unknown size?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
Who determines the size of the projectile?
As far as the caliber?
Yes, ma'am.
Probably the person analyzing the bullet. It doesn't affect my analysis or interpretation. What I look at is the dimension of the bullet, and I look at it in terms of could that bullet have made that hole at the dimension that we see. It becomes easier when the bullet is lodged in. We just want to make sure that we haven't missed another bullet.
And are the bullets that you retrieved from Jordan Davis's body consistent with having been fired from a 9mm handgun?
Yes, they are.
With regard to gunshot wound number 3 on the right thigh, let me show you State's Exhibit 155 in evidence. And explain to the jury why this photograph is taken with Jordan Davis face down.
Yeah, so in this photograph, Jordan Davis is laying on his stomach, and let me just orient you really quickly. So this would be the lower back. This is the right arm. This is the right thigh, the left thigh, and then the buttocks area over here. And so we take this picture because it was easier to photograph the entrance wound on that medial portion of the right thigh. Easier to photograph that from behind than it was from in between the legs.
All right. And doctor, along the top of Jordan Davis's right mid thigh, is that connected at all to the gunshot wound?
So, we can see a portion of the other wound. There's a nice crease here in the skin that we can use for reference when we're looking at the previous photo. But basically, we're looking at an entrance wound, the entrance wound here, and the portion of the exit wound right here.
All right. And then further along the top of the photograph, you see something towards the end of your red line.
This is an abrasion, or again another scrape, and this scrape had no particular features. It wasn't in the shape of anything special. It was just a scrape. And over here on the back of the right thigh, we see something that we call a patterned abrasion, meaning that it did have a shape, and this was rectangular. And the rectangular size was 1 centimeter by 6/10 centimeters. And the reason that we measure and describe it as such is so that in case anybody ever presents us with an object later, we can match it up and see if that wound was made by an object.
All right. And Dr. Simons, having not been able to recover a projectile from his body, are you still confident of the entrance wound and the exit wound?
Yes, I am.
Then can you put an E for the entrance wound and an X for the exit wound? Dr. Simons, is that consistent then with having entered Jordan Davis's body underneath his buttocks?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, and again, if you would just do a brief demonstration to show the jurors where this is on your body.
Okay. And this is not relative to any position. This is really just to show the path in the anatomic position. And so you have an entrance wound that's right back here. And again, you can see a portion of my finger if I do it this way. So you can see that's why you can see the wound a little bit better from the back than the front. And then we have the exit wound here. And so it's something like this in the anatomic position.
Thank you. Your Honor, at this time I'd request the court's permission. Oh, I'm sorry, I have one more question, and then I'm going to request permission to bring in the anatomical evidence. Dr. Simons, was gunshot wound number 3 alone fatal?
No.
Your Honor, at this time, and I didn't know if the court wanted to take a brief recess. I just need a couple of minutes.
That's what I was going to ask. How much longer are you going to be with the doctor?
Probably 10 or 15 more minutes. Whatever.
Well, we've got to bring this, it's an anatomical.
Doll.
Okay, doll. I didn't want to say dummy. So let's go ahead and take a morning break. We'll break until 11. That way we'll get everything set up and be ready to go when we come back. Don't talk about the case among yourselves. Don't let anybody approach you. We'll watch your notes for you, and we'll see you back in about 20 minutes. Karen. I guess Gable. get the thing.
Right.
We need to give it to him.
I know, and they sent me text, I said, yes, give it to them. They wanted to make sure, because it was a sidebar, that you had approved it, I guess, from previous issues with phase two as well. This was just, he has